During a religious ceremony, my husband's family insisted I kneel before his parents as a sign of respect. When I refused, his aunt gasped, "Then this marriage is doomed." My husband pleaded, "Just do it to keep the peace." Instead, I stood my ground, and the next day, they learned a hard lesson they never expected. I never thought a simple act of standing my ground would lead to such upheaval in my marriage and family life. But here I am, sharing my story. I'm Sarah, a 32-year-old woman from Charleston, South Carolina. I met my husband, Mark, during our college years at the University of South Carolina. We fell in love, got married, and settled in Charleston, close to his family. Mark's family is deeply rooted in tradition, with strong beliefs about respect and family hierarchy. I was aware of their customs, but I never anticipated how they would impact our relationship. The incident occurred during a significant religious ceremony at Mark's family church, a historic Baptist church in downtown Charleston. The church, with its towering steeple and centuries-old oak trees, stood as a testament to the family's long-standing faith and traditions. The ceremony was a family gathering to honor the elders and seek blessings for the younger generation. It was my first time attending such an event, and I was both nervous and eager to participate. As the ceremony progressed, the pastor called upon the spouses of the family's children to come forward and kneel before the elders as a sign of respect and submission. I watched as Mark's brothers' wives gracefully moved forward, knelt before his parents, and received their blessings. My heart pounded as I realized it was now my turn. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked toward Mark's parents, who were seated at the front of the church. As I approached, Mark's mother, Eleanor, gave me a warm smile and gestured for me to kneel. I hesitated, feeling a wave of discomfort wash over me. I had always believed that respect should be mutual and not demonstrated through acts of subservience. Kneeling felt wrong to me, like I was diminishing my own self-worth. Taking a deep breath, I looked Eleanor in the eyes and softly said, "I'm sorry, but I can't kneel. I respect you both immensely, but I believe that respect can be shown in other ways." A hushed silence fell over the congregation. I could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on me, the air thick with shock and disapproval. Mark's Aunt Patricia, known for her dramatic flair, gasped audibly and exclaimed, "Then this marriage is doomed." I glanced over at Mark, who was seated in the pews. His face was pale, his eyes wide with panic. He quickly stood up and approached me, leaning in to whisper, "Sarah, please, just do it to keep the peace. It's just a tradition." I shook my head gently, tears welling up in my eyes. "I can't, Mark. It goes against what I believe in." Eleanor's smile had faded, replaced by a look of disappointment and hurt. Mark's father, Richard, cleared his throat and said, "Let's continue with the ceremony." I turned and walked back to my seat, my legs trembling. The ceremony continued, but I couldn't focus. My mind was racing, replaying the moment over and over. Had I just made a huge mistake? Was I being selfish? Doubt and guilt gnawed at me. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the church hall. I could feel the tension in the air as family members whispered and cast furtive glances in my direction. I felt like an outsider, ostracized for standing up for my beliefs. Mark approached me, his face etched with frustration and concern. "Sarah, what were you thinking? You embarrassed my parents and disrespected our traditions." I felt a surge of anger and hurt. "Mark, I respect your family and their traditions, but I also have my own beliefs. I can't compromise who I am." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I understand, but couldn't you have just gone along with it for one day? Now everyone is upset, and Aunt Patricia is convinced our marriage is doomed." Tears streamed down my face as I whispered, "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted to be true to myself." We left the reception early, the ride home silent and tense. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had done the right thing. I loved Mark and his family, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had betrayed myself by even considering kneeling. The next morning, I received a call from Emily, Mark's younger sister. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, hoping for some support and understanding. We met at a small cafe downtown. Emily arrived, her face flushed with excitement. She hugged me tightly and said, "Sarah, I want you to know that I admire what you did yesterday. It took courage to stand up for your beliefs." I was taken aback. "Really? I thought everyone was upset with me." She nodded. "Some are, but honestly, many of us have been questioning some of these traditions for a while. Your actions sparked a conversation that's been long overdue." We talked for hours, sharing our thoughts and feelings about the family's customs and the pressure to conform. Emily confided that she had often felt stifled by the expectations placed upon her and that my defiance had given her the courage to voice her own concerns. Inspired by our conversation, Emily decided to speak with her parents about reevaluating some of the family's traditions. She believed that respect and love should be mutual and not tied to specific rituals. The following weekend, Emily invited Mark and me to dinner at her apartment. She had also invited a few other family members who were open to discussing the issue. I was nervous, but hopeful that we could find some common ground. As we sat around the dinner table, Emily began, "I know last week's ceremony brought up some strong feelings, and I think it's important we talk about it. Traditions are valuable, but they should also evolve to reflect our current beliefs and values." Mark's older brother, James, nodded in agreement. "I've often wondered why we continue certain practices without questioning their relevance. Maybe it's time we reassess." Eleanor and Richard exchanged glances, their expressions softening. Eleanor spoke, "We never intended for our traditions to cause discomfort or division. Perhaps we have been holding on too tightly to the past." I felt a glimmer of hope. "I appreciate and respect your traditions, but I also believe that respect can be shown in many ways. Maybe we can find a balance that honors both perspectives." The conversation continued late into the night, with everyone sharing their thoughts and feelings. It was the beginning of a new understanding within the family, one that valued individual beliefs while still honoring cherished traditions. In the weeks that followed, the family began to adapt their customs, allowing for more personal expression and mutual respect. The tension that had once clouded our gatherings began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of unity and acceptance. Standing my ground that day had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it led to a deeper connection and understanding within the family. It taught me the importance of staying true to oneself and how one act of courage can inspire others to seek change. A few weeks passed. Things seemed better. Mark's parents didn't mention the kneeling again. Emily and I got closer. Even Mark started softening up, like maybe he understood me a little more. But then, everything flipped. It started with a phone call from Mark's cousin, Lyle. I didn't even know we were close enough for him to be calling me directly, but there he was. Middle of the afternoon, I was home alone folding laundry when my phone buzzed. "Hey, just thought you should know. There's talk going around the family that you're trying to change too much. People are saying you've got Mark under your thumb." I sat down on the edge of the bed, stunned. "What do you mean?" He sighed. "Word is, you're manipulating him. They think you're trying to break up the family. That this whole respect on your terms thing was just the beginning. Some of them, they're not happy." I thanked him and hung up, but my hands were shaking. That night, when Mark got home, I told him about the call. He looked confused, then angry. "Who said that?" Lyle didn't name names. But he sounded serious. Mark paced the living room. "This is ridiculous. You're not doing anything wrong." But the damage had started. Over the next few days, things got cold. His mother stopped replying to my texts. Invitations to little family dinners stopped coming. Even Emily said her mom had been distant with her too, like she was being punished for siding with me. Then, the big blow came. One Sunday morning, Mark and I were heading to church, his church, where it all began. We walked in, trying to stay low-key. But the minute we stepped into the fellowship hall after service, I could feel it. People stopped talking. A few nodded politely, but most just stared. Some didn't even bother to hide their glares. An older woman I barely knew muttered, "There she is. The one who won't kneel." I froze. Mark heard it too. He tensed up beside me. We left early. The car ride home was dead silent until I finally said, "This is getting out of hand." Mark didn't say anything, just gripped the steering wheel tighter. Later that night, he broke. I feel like I'm being torn in two. I love you, Sarah, but my family. They're acting like you're the enemy. I don't know what to do anymore. I snapped. What do you mean you don't know? I'm your wife. You stand with me. Or are you still just hoping I'll cave and say sorry for having a spine? He looked hurt. That's not fair. No, Mark, I said, my voice shaking. What's not fair is being treated like I'm poison for not kneeling. What's not fair is being whispered about like I'm some kind of manipulative outsider just because I won't play by rules I never agreed to. He didn't respond. That night, he slept in the guest room for the first time. I tried to stay strong. I kept talking to Emily, who was now also starting to get the cold shoulder from the rest of the family. We called it the silent freeze-out. The family wasn't yelling or confronting, they were erasing. Quietly, completely. Then came another twist, one I never saw coming. I got a text from a random number. It was a screenshot. A private family group chat. We need to get Mark alone. Away from her. This is getting out of control. My hands went cold. I showed it to Emily. Her face went pale. That's Mom's handwriting. That's their group. I can't believe it! I wasn't even included in that one. It was like a punch to the gut. They weren't just upset, they were plotting. I told Mark. He looked at the screenshot for a long time. Said nothing. Then walked out the door without grabbing his keys or shoes. Just gone. I sat on the floor in the hallway, shaking. That was 3 days ago. He hasn't come back yet. 2 more days passed. Still no word from Mark. His phone went straight to voicemail. His location was off. He wasn't at the office, according to his assistant. Emily even checked with one of his friends from college, nothing. That Friday night, I sat alone on the couch, staring at the black screen of the TV, when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it slowly. It was Mark's father, Richard. I hadn't seen him since the ceremony. He stood there in a long dark coat, rain dripping off his hat. He looked tired. Older. But something about his face was different. Not angry. Not cold. Just serious. Can we talk? He asked. I stepped aside, wordless. He came in, took off his coat, and sat at the edge of the couch, hands folded tight. I stayed standing. I want to say something before you decide to kick me out, he began. I didn't agree with what happened at the church. And I sure as hell didn't like the way the family reacted after. But that group chat. I didn't know about that. Not until yesterday. I didn't say a word. He continued. Eleanor started it. Patricia and a few others joined. They think they're protecting Mark. But they're not. They're making this worse. I stared at him. So why are you here? He looked me dead in the eye. Because Mark's missing. And I think he read the messages too. I blinked. What? I checked the iCloud activity. The messages synced to his iPad. I think he saw what they were saying. Then he turned everything off. I felt my chest go hollow. He's hurt, Sarah. Caught in the middle. Doesn't know where to go or what to believe. I know my son. When he runs quiet like this, it's not good. I sat down across from him. So what do we do? Richard hesitated. Then pulled out a piece of paper from his coat pocket. This was in the mailbox at our house this morning. It's Mark's handwriting. I unfolded it. The writing was rough, almost shaky. I need space. Don't call. Don't look. I'll come back when I'm ready. I just need to breathe. That was it. No location. No clue. Richard's face tightened. I think he's at the lake house. The one up in Asheville. We haven't used it in years, but he always said it was his thinking place. I stood up. Then we go. But Richard didn't move. No. You go. I looked at him. Mark needs to hear from you. Not me. Not Eleanor. Not Emily. You. So the next morning, I drove. For hours straight. Asheville, North Carolina. Cold mist hanging over the mountains. Trees lining the empty roads. I hadn't been to the lake house before, but the gate code still worked. I parked. Walked up to the porch. Lights off. Curtains drawn. I knocked. No answer. I tried the knob. It was unlocked. The moment I stepped inside, I smelled coffee. Recent. Mark? I called out cautiously. Nothing. I walked in slow, heart pounding. Then I heard it. Footsteps upstairs. And then he appeared at the top of the staircase. Mark. Disheveled. Hoodie, sweatpants, bare feet. Hair a mess. Eyes red. He just stared. We didn't speak for a few seconds. Finally, I whispered, "I got your note." He nodded slowly. "I didn't want to be found." "I know," I said. "But I came anyway." He sat down on the steps, head in hands. I read everything they said. About you. About me. About tearing us apart. I sat on the step below him. "You okay?" I asked. He let out a broken laugh. "No, not really." We sat there in silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You were right. I should have stood with you. Instead, I let them write our story." And then, just like that, he started crying. But it wasn't the end of the story, because back in Charleston, something was brewing. Something neither of us expected. While we were gone, Eleanor made her move. She invited Emily to dinner under the pretense of talking things out. But when Emily arrived, she found not just her mother, but Patricia and even the church pastor. They tried to stage an intervention. Tried to convince Emily that I was destroying the family from within. Emily, thank God, didn't back down. She recorded the whole thing. Sent it to me. Voice calm, but firm. "You're wrong. You've created a version of family that only works if everyone plays by your rules. Sarah didn't divide us. You did. But the final twist? Someone else was at that dinner. Aunt Teresa. The quiet one. The one nobody ever paid much attention to. She stood up in the middle of it all and said, 'I think it's time someone else leads this family. Because clearly, the ones in charge have forgotten what love is.' Now that part? That's going to change everything. And Mark and I don't even know the half of what's about to happen back home." We stayed at the lake house for 2 more days. We didn't talk much. Sometimes silence says more than words. But we started to mend. Slowly. Not by pretending everything was okay, but by facing what wasn't. Then Mark got a message from Emily. Mom's been removed from the church council. Aunt Teresa called an emergency meeting. It got ugly, but it's done. Mark just stared at the screen for a long time. Another message came. "She's blaming Sarah. Says you chose her over your own blood. She's planning to cut you out of everything." That's when Mark laughed. Not the good kind. The kind that sounds like something broke inside. "Cut me out of what?" he said. "A legacy built on fear and guilt?" We drove back to Charleston the next morning. Not to make peace. To finish what was started. We arrived at Mark's parents' home unannounced. They were hosting a post-service gathering. The whole family was there. Cars lined up down the street. I wanted to leave the second I saw them all gathered, but Mark grabbed my hand and said, "No. This time, we do it together." We walked in. The room went quiet. Again. Eleanor stood up. Her eyes cold, mouth tight. "You dare show up here," she said. "After all the division you've caused? After making a mockery of our traditions? After turning your husband against his family?" Mark stepped forward. "No, Mom. You did that all by yourself." She blinked. "Excuse me? You used tradition as a weapon. You turned your love into control. And when Sarah didn't kneel, you made her the villain. But I let you. That's on me." Then he turned to the room. "I want you all to hear this. If you think respect only comes when someone kneels before you, you've forgotten what it means to love. I'm done living under rules I didn't write." There were gasps. A few murmurs. Patricia rolled her eyes. Eleanor said, "You're making a scene." Mark looked around. "No. You did. When you created a secret group chat to get me away from my wife. That stopped everything." Aunt Teresa, standing in the corner, nodded. "I've seen the messages. All of them." Eleanor's face twisted. "So what now? You cut ties? You turn your back on everything we built?" Mark smiled, but it wasn't kind. "No, Mom. I let it fall. And you can pick up the pieces alone." He walked out the door. I followed. We were halfway down the driveway when Emily came running out, yelling, "Wait." She caught up to us, breathless, holding a manila envelope. "I found this in Mom's desk." You need to see it. Mark opened it. Inside were legal documents. Papers to remove Mark as a co-owner of a property trust set up by his grandfather. Signatures already forged. Dates backdated. She was going to cut you out quietly. Make it legal without you knowing, Emily said. Mark didn't even look surprised. Of course she was. He handed the papers back. Give them to a lawyer. And we left. 2 weeks later, Mark filed official charges for attempted fraud. Eleanor was forced to resign from the church council entirely. The pastor, trying to save face, gave a sermon about truth and humility without ever naming names. But everyone knew. Aunt Patricia? Turns out she had been pushing to change the will too. She was also removed from the family trust. Teresa took over the estate management. She started holding open family meetings. No more secrets. No more behind closed doors manipulation. As for us, we moved. Out of Charleston. A quiet place in the mountains near Asheville. Started over. Emily visits often. She's happier, freer, stronger. Mark still gets occasional messages from family members trying to make amends. He doesn't reply. And me? I learned something too. I had pride. And maybe I could have been gentler. Maybe I could have explained more. But I wasn't wrong. I stood up, not just for myself, but for something bigger. Respect. Real respect. The kind you don't kneel for. The kind you earn. And for those who tried to twist love into control, they got what they gave. In full. And for once, I slept easy.